The U.S. men's national team is set to release their roster very soon for the January camp window of World Cup qualifying. Who will be included? Who will be left out? Who will Greg bring? Who would I bring? Hi, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Taxman HD, and welcome to today's episode where we're going to try to predict who will Greg Berhalter bring for the World Cup qualifying window that's coming up now in January. The roster is set to be released January 17th, 18th, or 19th. So essentially, if you're watching this week, that it's released next Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. With that said, before I start the roster, I will be giving you some assumptions we have to make to know who will be and who will not be in camp. All right, we have to do that. And before we start, obviously always hit that like button. I'm ordering you right now. Don't forget, this is a dictatorship, and I am your dictator. Sorry. I am your host. I get carried away sometimes. Thank you very much. Let's play the intro, and let's start the assumptions. Okay, so the first thing we have to make it clear, this is a 3-game window. We will be playing El Salvador, we're going to be playing Canada and Honduras. With that said, this is the assumption I'm going to make. It's that Greg Berhalter will bring a 27-man roster. In September, when we had 3 games, he brought 26 players, and he learned that he had to bring more. So for October, the other window that we had 3 games, he brought 27 players. Personally, with the injuries and COVID outbreaks, I would bring 30 players, and maybe Greg will. He has hinted that we could see a roster with 30 players or more. But for the purposes of this video, let's assume it's a 27-man roster. Another assumption we have to make is all the players that we're going to list here in this video are currently healthy or recovering from injury and should be back in time. So we're going to have to assume that. Obviously, things can change. Like some players that I'll mention throughout the video are Timothy Weah, Giovanni Reina, update on their situation. We're going to have to make assumptions on those players. Otherwise, it becomes impossible to predict. And I will probably get that wrong, but it's all I can do for now. I'm also going to assume all the MLS guys are fully fit. They're ready with Greg Berhalter for these 2 weeks, and I'm going to make that assumption, even though they're in their off-season, entering their preseason, along with some guys in Europe that are also technically in their mid-season, off-season, where they don't have official matches, just friendlies. But I'm going to have to assume that they're fit and match sharp. And just to make it clear, this video is being recorded January 11th. And one thing I want to say before I start is depth will be key in this camp for all nations because of everything crazy that's going on. It's going to be very important for all nations, and I think that is an advantage for the United States. Now let's start the roster, and let's go to the goalkeepers that Greg would bring and my goalkeepers. All right, so for the goalkeeping position, I believe Greg Berhalter will bring a total of 3 goalkeepers. And the 3 goalkeepers I think he's going to bring are Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, and Sean Johnson, that won MLS with New York City FC. Now, the ones I would personally bring, which are the exact same as Greg Berhalter. I would bring Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, and Sean Johnson. I wouldn't bring Ethan Horvath right now. He's not playing. There's no need to bring him. He likely wouldn't play anyway. Zach Steffen is probably the starter. Matt Turner is the backup, and having Sean Johnson there doesn't really hurt. I wouldn't be surprised if Gaga Slonina is kept in camp because MLS will be entering preseason for the clubs. So maybe he'll keep Gabriel Slonina to get experience, but he'll be the 4th goalkeeper and probably not in any of the game day rosters. Just one thing to update as well, I have heard rumors that Sean Johnson has COVID at the time of this recording. He should be okay for camp based on the quarantine days. Greg Berhalter did say that we did have a COVID outbreak among the MLS camp that he has right now, but the players are fine, and hopefully they will be fine by the time camp arrives. So just to recap, the goalkeepers are Zach Steffen, Matt Turner, and Sean Johnson. Those are Greg's picks that I think he's going to bring, and those are the goalkeepers that I would bring as well. All right, now we got to the fullbacks, and this is where me and Greg will have different lists. Not by a lot. There's some players that are just locks, some aren't. So let me go through Greg Berhalter's predicted fullbacks. I believe for this camp, Greg will bring 5 fullbacks total, based on the assumption that we're going to have a 27-man roster. So the fullbacks I believe he's going to bring are Serginho Dest, DeAndre Edlin, which will be technically the 2 right backs, Anthony Robinson as the first option in the left back, Sam Vines, that is another left back, and Joe Scally would be the 5th option of Greg, which he would be the 3rd backup for the left back position or the right back position. So another player that probably I left out, which I think Greg won't bring him, but he could be here. One of them is Reggie Cannon. But Reggie Cannon has been playing as a right center back in a back 3 formation for Boa Vista at Portugal. So, and he hasn't been playing much throughout the season. So I don't think Greg will bring Reggie Cannon for this one, even though Greg really rates Reggie Cannon. So I think those are the 5 Greg's going to bring. Dest, Yedlin, Anthony Robinson, Sam Vines, and Joe Scally. So which fullbacks would I bring? The first one right away is Serginho Dest. The second one would be Joe Scally. Both of these players are perfectly capable of playing the right back position and the left back position as well. Another option I would bring would be Anthony Robinson, which would be my first option for the left back position, with Joe Scally as the backup of Dest and Robinson at the same time. Now, the other player I would bring in is DeAndre Yedlin. I personally think he's fine at the right back position to be one of the options. Last but not least, George Bello. I would have him in camp as the third option for the left back position. I wouldn't expect him to play, but even though it's MLS preseason, Atlanta United would have to release him. I know historically Bocanegra does everything he can with Atlanta United to not release players for the U.S. men's national team, but he would have to release Bello, even though I wouldn't intend on playing him. He would be just a third option, but I think depth is key, and having him there would be essential. Now, you might be asking yourself, why would I not call up Jonathan Gomez? 1, I don't think he would accept the call right now and commit to the U.S. men's national team. 2, he just got to Real Sociedad. Let's see how he does there, and also let him adjust. He just arrived there. You also might be asking, why would I pick Sam Vines over Bello? Honestly, I don't really rate both of them. I kind of put them almost at the same level. I would just have Bello here because he's already in the United States. That would be my main reason. I wouldn't be too picky in terms of Bello and Vines, but I would bring in George Bello in that case. I also think George Bello offers a little bit more than Vines on offense, and Vines offers a little bit more than Bello on defense, and Vines can be more consistent as well. Now we're off to the center backs, and let's start with the 5. I believe Greg will bring 5 center backs for this camp. So the 5 center backs I believe Greg will bring will be Miles Robinson from Atlanta United, Walker Zimmerman, Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, and Tim Ream. Yes, Tim Ream has been playing for Fulham, so I do think Greg will bring him in. Plus, Greg loves Tim Ream. I think actually the overall group likes Tim Ream's leadership. Now, even though Aaron Long has been around for the camp that we had, the 2-0 till 3, he was there for the December camp and he's there for the January camp, there's no way Greg will put him to play. He hasn't played for months a competitive match. 8, 9 months, I believe. He's still coming back from injury. There's no way Greg would bring in Aaron Long for a World Cup qualifying match as his first comeback game from this major Achilles injury. Right? I hope. Right? Now, you might be saying also, where's John Brooks? I'm going to get to my list very soon. We've seen Greg not rate Brooks recently, so I don't think he's going to bring John Brooks for this camp. Just what I think. But I wouldn't be surprised if he brought John Brooks instead of Mark McKenzie. I don't know. In my prediction video, I don't think Greg will bring John Brooks for this one. So which center backs would I bring? And I'm also going to use 5, just like Greg. I would obviously bring Miles Robinson. That's a no-brainer. Chris Richards, another no-brainer. I would also bring Walker Zimmerman. I think he's been fairly reliable, and he's been pretty good in MLS. Well, actually, pretty good is an understatement. He's been the best or the second best center back in MLS. I would also bring John Brooks. And my 5th option would actually be Cameron Carter-Vickers from Celtic. Yeah, I would leave Mark McKenzie out. He's picking up some good steam there at Genk. I would leave him in Belgium for this camp. And I think Cameron Carter-Vickers deserves a look. He's been the best or one of the best center backs in the Scottish Premiership, playing for Celtic, which is a fantastic team when you compare to MLS clubs. And I know the Scottish League might be worse or at the same level as MLS, but Celtic are a club that would probably win MLS every season alongside Rangers, or at least be close to MLS Cup. So personally, I think that Cameron Carter-Vickers deserves at least a call-up and a look. So yeah, I would bring Miles Robinson, Chris Richards, Walker Zimmerman, John Brooks, and CCV from Celtic. Also, everyone, don't forget to comment down below your roster, the players you would bring. What do you agree with me? Do you think I'm getting Greg Berhalter's names right? Maybe I am, probably not. But anyhow, let's keep going with the video, and don't forget to hit the like button while you're at that process. Now, we have reached the midfielders, and I think Greg Berhalter will bring 7 midfielders. So I'm going to give you his 7 midfielders, and then I'll tell you my 7 midfielders, and you can tell me yours on the comment section down below. So personally, I think Greg Berhalter will bring Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Kellen Acosta, Sebastian Lletget, Gianluca Busio, and Christian Roldan. Yes, I think those are the names he's going to bring. All players he rates. Greg usually takes a while to change. He loves those guys, and some of them are no-brainers, right? We know Weston, Yunus Musa, Tyler Adams. There's no way they'll be left out. But all the other players that I mentioned, Greg does rate. Some of them deserve to be there, like Gianluca Busio. Some of them shouldn't be there, like Roldan and Leggett. But they will honestly probably be in Greg's roster. So just to recap, it's Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Kellen Acosta, Sebastian Leggett, Gianluca Busio, and Christian Roldan will likely be the 7 midfielders Greg will bring. Now, as for my 7 midfielders, I would bring Tyler Adams, just like Greg, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa. These guys are just locks in the roster at this point, and maybe even the starters. Probably the starters. We really need to see more of that MMA midfield, especially against the rude Canadians. My 4th pick is Gianluca Busio. My 5th pick for the midfield is Luca De La Torre. My 6th pick is James Sands, MLS champ, can play the 6 and center back position if needed. And then my 7th pick would be Kellen Acosta. So my picks are pretty self-explanatory. I don't have much to add to it. I know maybe some of you might disagree with Acosta. Maybe he shouldn't be in the roster, maybe he should be. But from what we've seen and from Greg's favorites, he's most certainly the most useful one for the men's national team, and I would actually still have him as the 7th option there in my roster. But with that said, a lot of different names. I wonder what you guys, I would actually like to know your midfielders. That would be pretty nice to know. I will read the comments, don't worry. But let's keep moving forward with the video, and now let's go to the wingers. So for the wingers, I believe Greg will bring 4 wingers. So I'm going to do 4 wingers for myself as well. Now this is where it gets very tricky, to say the least, because we have the Timothy Weah and Giovanni Reyna situation, right? Reyna hasn't played for months, ever since he got injured in the September camp. He hasn't played. He hasn't even made the bench for Dortmund because he's still coming back from injury. There are claims that he's fit and he's training, but he has yet to get a minute. So do you bring him or do you not bring him? Personally, if Reyna is fit, I bring him regardless. He doesn't need to be 100% match sharp. I would bring him in and have him as a sub, as an option off the bench. I don't know what Greg will do. Now, Timothy Weah got injured in December, a muscle injury, and has yet to return for Lille, so I don't know his situation there. So I have to assume that Timothy Weah is out for now. We could get an update and he could be back. Now, if Reyna and Weah are out, Greg does have points to back him up. But let's go to Greg's list of who do I think he will bring for this camp. The 4 wingers that I think Greg Berhalter will bring for this camp are Christian Pulisic, Brendan Aronson, Paul Arriola, his favorite, and Jordan Morris. He does not seem to rate Conrad de la Fuente, so, I don't think Conrad will be there. Plus, according to Greg, Conrad lacks his favorite word, verticality. Now, as I talked about Weah and Giovanni Reyna, I can't assume they'll be there. So Greg also said it's too early to tell, so he's not 100% sure. They might make it to the roster, but I'm going to assume in this video that they're not healthy or fit or in match sharpness to be part of this roster. Who would be my 4 wingers? So my 4 wingers, assuming Giovanni Reyna and Timothy Weah are out, would be Christian Pulisic, Brendan Aronson, Conrad de la Fuente, and Jordan Morris. But again, if Reyna and Weah are available, I would replace Jordan Morris with Giovanni Reyna to have him on the wing or the central midfield. And I would add Timothy Weah, and I would replace one of the 3 center forwards that I was going to bring. I'll mention later. One of the 3 center forwards I would replace with Weah. Weah would be my right winger, but he can play forward if needed. So that's what I would do if they were available. And I'm assuming Greg will bring them if they are available and fit, but we just don't know yet. And in this video, we have to make assumptions. All right, we're reaching the end of the video. Now we're going to go to the center forwards. And I think Greg will bring 3 center forwards for this camp. So I'm also going to do 3 forwards for myself as well. Who are the 3 that Greg will bring? So the first 2 to me are locks. And as crazy as this sounds, I don't see them not being in the roster unless they're injured. Ricardo Pepi and Jassy Zardes are likely going to be there. And then the third one that I think Greg will bring is Jesus Ferreira. And he can play in the wing as well if needed, but Greg does want to play him as a false 9 apparently, so we could see Jesus Ferreira there. Jordan Morris can even play as a center forward if required, but I don't think Greg will put him there. Also, at Greg's press conference, he got confused Barnsley with Nottingham Forest of where Daryl DK played last season, so yeah, DK ain't making the roster when the coach doesn't even know where you played last season. And I know, I'm just joking. I know Greg knows that DK played at Barnsley, but when he got that confused, I just think something worth mentioning. It's not a good look for the coach. If me, just a guy on YouTube, knows where he played, the men's national team should know as well. But yeah, I don't think DK will make it to this roster, at least not at Greg's roster. So I gave you Greg's center forwards. Who would I bring? Which would be the 3 center forwards that I would bring into the U.S. men's national team January camp? My center forwards would be Ricardo Pepi, Daryl DK. I would bring Daryl DK in. He will be getting minutes for West Brom, and I would just bring him in. I actually wanted him last camp as well. The other one is Josh Sargent. He is playing. He is match sharp, playing a competitive level, and he would be my third option, right? I would integrate him back. He would be behind Pepe and DK. He probably wouldn't even get minutes this camp, but I would bring him, and he would be the player that I would replace with Timothy Weah if Weah is healthy. So I would put Timothy Weah for Sargent and play Weah as a right winger as well. Now, I think DK offers more than Zardes, and as I said, he will be getting some games for West Brom. The MLS guys are also in off-season, and that would play a role for me as well in terms of picking DK here, because he is practicing and training with West Brom, and he will be getting actual competitive minutes. Now, you might be asking about Pifak, right? He was in good form for BSC Young Boys at the Swiss League. I don't rate him. I actually agree with Greg, and Greg mentioned that he doesn't stretch the back line. I just think Pifak is a little too static at times, and it doesn't really blend in very well with some of the dynamic players we have at the moment. I don't rate him. Would I be opposed to Greg giving Pifak another look? Absolutely not. He's been performing for his team. I just wouldn't bring Pifak, and I don't think Greg will bring as well. So that's something me and Greg actually agree with. Would you bring Pifak? That's something I'd like to know. All right, comment it down below and hit the like button while you're at it. All right, everyone, that does it for this video. We will be doing a live stream as soon as the roster drops next week. So keep an eye on that. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. And as I already said so many times, hopefully you hit the like button by now and commented down below, any of your roster picks. Also, us and 11 Yanks might have 2 surprise announcements very soon. So keep an eye on that on Twitter and Instagram. So go follow us on Twitter, Manager Tactical, and go follow us on Instagram, Tactical Manager TV. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and have a great day.